Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and after the chaos of this weekend's post-election meltdown in Labour and recriminations flying all over the place, Keir Starmer seems to have come out fighting, not just with a reshuffle that I'd like to discuss the key points of. It's a relatively modest one, but important, but a warning to some in the party about their lack of focus. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, not going to lie, had my head in my hands for most of the weekend. I was not a happy bunny, but Starmer's reaction yesterday was better, much better. Should we kick off with the major drama? That of people trying to poke at tensions between Keir Starmer, the leader, and Angela Rayner, the deputy leader. So, here's the thing. Rayner and Starmer have actually approached their roles with much more purpose and humility than their predecessors. Anyone who paid any attention to the Labour Party over the last few years cannot help but notice that the previous leader and deputy leader had a rather fractious relationship. Starmer and Rayner have been serene, quite frankly. Rayner has backed Starmer to the hilt as leader, and Starmer in return gave Rayner senior roles within the party, and he didn't have to. Rayner is the deputy leader. She's voted for by the membership. It's the one role within Labour, the parliamentary party, that the leader has no choice in. He decides all the other roles. That's the one he doesn't have a choice in. So she gets a seat at cabinet, shadow cabinet, all the rest of it. But he chose to give her other roles as well. And they've both put on shows of unity for the public that should actually be an inspiration to the rest of the party. But reports of tensions between the two have spilled over this weekend, though you notice it's their allies rather than the people themselves stirring. You know, it's childish mates rather than the people themselves. But so what? Any two intelligent people are going to disagree about things. You get any two intelligent people that might generally agree about certain things, like, for example, Rayner and Starmer both agree that we should actually have a Labour government. But they are going to disagree about things as well. If there were no tensions at all, if I was, being told that even by insiders there's no tensions, they're completely in tune with each other, I would worry that one of them doesn't care. They are both charged with driving Labour towards electoral success for the first time in 20 years. I'll remind people, come the next general election, it will have been 20 years virtually since Labour won an election. And it's important that they both realise it's important. Of course they're going to disagree. Like, it turns out now we've discovered that my partner and I disagree when it comes to DIY. She doesn't agree with me, for example, that any problem can be solved with a hammer. Like I was putting the blinds up in here recently in the studio, and we were having real trouble with them. I wanted to get one of my hammers out. I have a selection because you don't use the same hammer for everything. That'd be silly. You have different hammers. She disagreed. No. Eventually, I won out because it wasn't working. I used a hammer. All the blinds are up now. I only broke one. And there have been other times when she's been right. We don't argue. We don't row. We just disagree at times. Though it does tend to be just times when I talk about getting my toolbox out because she knows there's a load of hammers in it. But people went ballistic. Starmer said he accepts responsibility, but the narrative or the news that was coming out was Starmer saying, yes, I accept responsibility. By the way, I'm sacking Angela Rayner. How is that taking responsibility? But that's not what happened. He didn't do that, did he? He didn't make any such announcement. This was news leaked by someone trying to damage Starmer. Starmer instead was trying to say, right, we need to move people to more appropriate roles, ones that are best suited to them. And then they announced, someone announces Rayner's been sacked. Starmer didn't. The bottom line is that Rayner has been removed from her roles as party chair and head of campaign and moved to shadow cabinet secretary. Now, it might well be that Starmer wanted to give her a less senior role and she insisted on something a bit meatier. I don't know. It might be true, perfectly possible. But bear in mind, Starmer doesn't have to give her any role. But like I said, whatever the internal bickering, all that can be seen from the public is that Rayner has been moved from head of campaigning and party chair to shadow cabinet office. That's a promotion. In anyone's books, that's a promotion. As I sort of tried to explain to someone yesterday, where she was before, her Tory opposite number was James Cleverly. Where she is now, her Tory opposite number is Michael Gove, one of the most senior people in the party. It's a promotion. Being party chair. Now, it's an important internal role. Not downplaying the importance, but it's completely worthless for raising your profile in the public. It does nothing for her career, her aspirations. Most members of the public wouldn't even know she was the chair of the Labour Party. Most members of the public don't know that James Cleverly is chair of the Conservative Party. But as Shadow Cabinet Secretary, she's now going to be the Labour lead on tackling Tory sleaze. Tory sleaze is going to be a central plank of Labour campaigning for the next few years. And she is going to be front and centre of that. That is a job for an ambitious Labour MP that they can really get their teeth into. As for the head of the campaign, if she wasn't always on Starmer's wavelength anyway, it was absolutely ridiculous that she'd be in that role. Because, obviously, if you're the head of a campaign, you've got to be able to make decisions. You can't be constantly undermined. But Starmer's the leader. He has responsibility for the results of a campaign. So obviously, it's not fair to let someone run the campaign that's going to make decisions you don't agree with, and then you get the blame for it. So he can't just let someone else make decisions he doesn't agree with. So Starmer needs someone running the campaign that is on his wavelength. That Rayner has been removed from the post is not blaming Rayner or saying she can't do the job. It's Starmer saying that he got the appointment wrong. And that is what taking responsibility is. How does a leader take responsibility when something hasn't gone as well as you want it to? You don't just resign every time. Yes, if he loses a general election, he should resign. This isn't that. This is a year in, and actually progress has been made. It's like the results, everyone was going to how bad they were. They won 10 out of 13, I think, of the mayoral elections. In terms of the local elections, where there was a net loss, yes, and the Conservatives made a net gain, but the loss was horrendous in 2019. They increased their vote share this time round. And that's without any policies. So what's happened here is he's matched people better to their roles. Yeah, if he loses a general election, if he continues to get it wrong, of course he'll have to resign. But you don't resign after 1 year, after a few local elections, where actually you showed progress compared to where you picked it up. Unless there's an absolute disaster, and I mean a complete disaster, you give the leader a general election. And that's what he needs to be given. Now, as for the Shadow Chancellor role, now I said at the time I couldn't understand Starmer's choice in Dodds, but I thought, oh, maybe, I don't know. She's a red hot economist, don't get me wrong. She's an actual economist. She's been bang on the money with everything she's said, and she's called out Rishi Sunak accurately every single time. From that point of view, she's been great Shadow Chancellor. And the point is, she would have been a very good Chancellor. But she hasn't broken through to the public, because as Shadow Chancellor, she doesn't get to decide anything. Her understanding of economics is useful in calling Sunak to account, if you can call him to account. She hasn't broken through her message into the public. The pandemic hasn't helped, of course, but other senior members of the front bench have distinguished themselves, including Rachel Reeves, who's going to take over the role. Now, there's a lot of people in the party who are looking at this as where are they in the party? Is it a win or a loss? So what they're looking at, Dodds, who's on the left of the party, is being removed from the role, a very senior role. Rachel Reeves, who's not as far on the left at all, she's more centre-left, is being given that role. And they're going, oh, no, this is a loss to the left. No. All of these people want a Labour government. All of these people are working for a Labour government. Rachel Reeves was absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. We need someone who will hold Rishi Sunak to account. And if Boris Johnson's removed and Rishi Sunak becomes Prime Minister, whoever is the next Chancellor, Rachel Reeves tore Michael Gove apart last year. And that's what we need. I think she'll be absolutely brilliant. In fact, given that the local elections, once you look at the full results, actually show progress, like I said, if the infighting can just calm down a bit, I've got a good feeling that we could be looking at the first female Chancellor that the UK has ever had. Now, as for Dodds herself, it is harsh, like I said, because, she got everything right. Everything she said was right. It just wasn't breaking through to the public. But Labour cannot afford to be sentimental. She's incredibly intelligent, loyal party MP, and she has replaced Rayner as chair. Now, that will suit her better. Yes, it's a demotion when you look at it like that, but it will suit her better because it's a role that involves internal party matters. She's well respected in the party. She doesn't have a high public profile, even though she's been Shadow Chancellor for a year. The role doesn't require major public engagement, beyond maybe doing the odd interview now and then. So her intelligence, drive and personal popularity amongst people she knows, because that's what she's got. She's popular amongst people who know her personally. She doesn't have that charisma that breaks through to the public. A little bit like Theresa May. By all accounts, Theresa May was personally popular within the Conservative Party, but she didn't have that charisma that brought people on board, which is why she made such a hash of the 2017 general election. So Dodds could be put to much better use as party chair, where you're dealing with Labour MPs, not so much the public. And now that's not the full extent of the reshuffle, even though, there wasn't many changes, but these were the key moves. And every single one of them, I would say, is moving someone to where their skills will be put to better use. Rayner's got a promotion, Reeves has got a promotion. They're both very, very good at getting their message out to the public. Dodds not so good at getting the message out to the public, so she's been given a role where actually dealing with Labour MPs is the key issue. And that's what Labour need to do. So when you hear of a reshuffle, you sometimes wonder whether it's an opposition reshuffle or a government reshuffle. You sometimes want to see, it's a bit like in football, where a manager changes things around. Some know exactly what they're doing, and the team suddenly comes together. They've worked it out, they've looked at the players, they've come in, they've gone, right, yeah, this is now how we're going to do it. All slots together, pieces working beautifully. But sometimes they're just experimenting, trial and error until it works. Now, we can't know which this is right now, of course. Take time to test that. But there's at least thoughts here. Regardless of what went on behind closed doors, Rayner's got a promotion and is straight into it. I saw her tweets about Tory sleeves before I even heard she's got the job. I think she'll be brilliant in the role, and it will give her that real public exposure for the future, possibly even a future leadership bid in the fullness of time. Hopefully after Starmer steps down after being the Prime Minister that brought us serious electoral reform and not having buggered up another general election. But Starmer didn't just make his statement with a reshuffle. That's hard to criticise. Can't really criticise it. Plenty will, of course. And one that makes those who jump to conclusions over the weekend look very silly. Yeah, he's blaming Rayner. No, he's not. He's sacked her. No, he hasn't. He's given her a promotion. Again, doesn't matter what actually happened behind closed doors. That's what's happened. So those people that jumped on it look bloody stupid now. But he also took a swipe at the infighters by saying that they were too internally focused and not focusing on voters. It's just about what they want. No. This is about what voters want. And he said he's going to lay out his vision over the coming months. He's also going to spend summer going round the country engaging with voters. Now, we don't know what Labour's detailed policies were on anything for last week's elections. So, the people who lost seats or failed to gain seats they thought they should have got, who were having to basically make it up in terms of explaining what Labour policies were, you could say, well, they weren't given much help there. Fair enough in many ways, although I will say, as most of the elections were for local elections, well, you sort of get to decide your own policies to a certain extent. But it was an unforced error, absolutely. That shouldn't be the case for the next set of elections. In fact, Starmer has a chance to get serious on that front right now. There is an opportunity coming up for a win. Is he going to take it? See, there's going to be another couple of by-elections. One has been vacated by a Labour MP, who won the mayoral election, and one by a Conservative MP. Both of them might go to the Conservatives. The Conservatives have a really good chance of winning both of them. However, the one that was held by the Conservatives before their incumbent MP sadly passed away is one that Labour cannot win. No chance. But the Liberal Democrats can. Now, this is a golden opportunity for Labour to form a pact with the Greens and the Lib Dems. If the Greens will agree to stand their candidate down in both constituencies, and Labour agree to stand down in Chesham and Amersham, with the Lib Dems doing likewise for Bately and Spen, not only would Labour be very likely to retain the seat they have, because at the moment it's a bit tight, the Conservatives could absolutely win it, they're counting on voter apathy. This isn't one like Hartlepool where, it was right-wing votes in 2019, but it was just split with the Brexit Party. This one is more, it's tight, it's marginal. But if a load of Labour voters stay away, then the Conservatives can absolutely win it. But surely Starmer will want to avoid more pressure. If he can get the Lib Dems and the Greens to stand down, and he stands down in the other seat, that would inflict a real blow against the Conservatives, because the Conservatives would lose a seat. This is a real opportunity to get back on the front foot. Really get back on the front foot. He would almost, especially if everyone decides to campaign for the anti-Tory candidate. So it's not just that Labour stand their candidate down, but I mean, obviously, if they're willing, Labour activists go out and about door knocking anyway, supporting the Lib Dem candidate as the anti-Tory candidate. And if the Greens may well choose to do the same thing. If in Labour's constituency, if the Lib Dems agree to do that as well, they're activists if they're willing, then this could be a real blow. Labour would retain their seat. Okay, that's not a win for Starmer. It's retaining a seat. You don't get any credit for that. But it'll be taking one off the Conservatives. For the Lib Dems, but it's taking one off the Conservatives. And that'll be damaging for Johnson. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.